Welcome back, Honors. So we kind of stopped here today, right? Talking about Darius and his crushing of the Ionian rebellion, and we talked about how the First Persian War shouldn't even really be considered the First Persian War. It should be considered more along the lines of like First Persian Skirmish, whatever you want to call it. So the main thing about it is, though, is that getting forward, and then we talked about the Second Persian War, which should actually be the First Persian War because it's the, write this down, the first invasion of Greece, right? So we got to this point, and the cause is actually the revenge for Athenian interference, right? So mainly Darius is just really, really peeved off right now because who sent the Ionians all those weapons? Good job, Denton, right? Like the Athenians did. So this is a very, very big betrayal, and it's also a slap in the face of the largest empire that the world had ever seen up to this point. So apparently Darius had a servant remind him every day, Master, remember the Athenians, right? Every day a servant said this to King Darius. So, like I said, ladies, y'all, right? Some of y'all told me that y'all have some grudges today. Olivia. So, every day this guy is hearing this. Every day. At me next time, right? So, anyway. And then we get into the Second Persian War, right? One of the major battles of the Second Persian War was actually the Battle of Marathon. So, outnumbered, the Greeks defeat the Persians. Literally, a force of 1,200 Greeks killed 6,400 Persians when they tried to invade the city-state of Marathon on their way to Athens. So, the coolest thing about it is, though, is what's one of the remnants of Marathon? The race, right? Well, the race actually comes from this guy right here. He was an Athenian that was actually sent back to Athens to tell them, oh, hey, we won. But Marathon to Athens is 26.2 miles. So he ran the whole thing barefoot, right? And when he got there, he actually said, rejoice, we have conquered. And then he died. Like, he actually died right there on the spot, apparently, in front of the Archon of Athens at the time. So, but the result of the Second Persian War is the main thing, right? The results are, of course, Athens decided, look, we have got to build, we have to be good at something. The Spartans are good on the land, we need to be good at something, so we're going to be good where? In the water, right? So they actually built a fleet of ships and to prepare for another attack, right? And they were actually called, what were they called again? Triremes, yeah. They're called triremes, and this is one of them right here. That is an Athenian trireme. And hold on one second. All right, so it's called a trireme, right? So a trireme has a very, very specific design, and it all has to do with its ability to wage war. So it's powered by two different things, right? Of course, the number one thing is the sails. It is powered by air, but then also it was apparently powered by slaves in the bottom that could actually row it if necessary. Now, the cool thing about a trireme compared to a Persian vessel is actually that it is smaller and much more mobile. And then also hidden, I want to zoom in a little bit, hidden right here up underneath the water, actually mounted to the boat itself. So they would literally ram into the Persian vessels, pop a hole in it, and then watch them sink. Because think about it. Back then, how would you fight a naval battle? You fight most of it in the water, or you try to jump on their boat, which actually is very, very dangerous. Or you can hope to hopefully set it on fire, because most boats at the time were made out of things like tar, pitch, and turpentine. So, but the Athenian boat was so fast that it actually sunk a lot of different Persian vessels. So, the Athenians also, the biggest result of the Second Persian War is the Athenians created the very, very first military alliance that had ever been seen. So the Athenians asked a bunch of other city-states to form an alliance, right? And it's the first that the Greeks had ever seen. And it's also the very first time in history that it ever happened. So that started rolling forward. Now, the Third Persian War is going to start because who's going to pick up where his daddy failed? Good job, Isabel, right? Xerxes is going to pick up where his father failed. Somebody tell me something again about Xerxes. Does anybody remember stuff? Dan, good job, right? He was very, very superstitious. He whipped the water. Anybody else? Hello? Good job, Jenny, right? He built like a giant golden chair and would watch all the victories of his armies from a different spot. But the main thing is that Persians decide, look, we can't just go at them from the water anymore, or we can't just go at them from the land. We got to go by both, right? So literally, the Persians want revenge, and they come after Athens by land and by sea. Now, the major battles, of course, the one that you know the most about, is the Battle of Thermopylae. Now, we're going to watch a video on this tomorrow, don't let me forget, where you actually tell me, like, what do you think's Hollywood and what do you think's real? And it was led by the Spartan king Leonidas. Now, remember, how many kings does Sparta have? Good job, Claire. They have two, right? So, they have two kings. One of them is in charge of the government and things at home, and the other one is in charge of the military. Well, King Leonidas was the one in charge of the military at the time, and he talked to the Council of Elders, and they sent him off to war against the Persians. The Spartans knew that they were very outmatched, numbers-wise, right? There was about 6,000 Spartans, including a bunch of Acadians. Calm down, Denton. Some Acadians and some people from Corinth and Megara and a couple other city-states that they actually knew, and they allowed to fight with them. So they were going up against 200,000 Persians. Now, the myth goes that 300 Spartans defeated a million Persians. That never actually happened, all right? And the Spartans did end up losing the battle, but the amazing thing was that they were outnumbered, like, almost, is that more than 20? Like, what's the ratio there? What's 200 divided by 6? Anybody? Tell me tomorrow what the ratio that they were outnumbered by for extra credit, all right? So they were severely outnumbered, and the Spartans managed to hold them off for 2 days, or 3 days, right? 3 whole days. Now, they're going to eventually lose, and we'll talk more about this battle itself tomorrow, but Athens' end result actually is going to be burned because the Persians are going to mow through they're going to push down the Spartans and keep going through. They're actually going to destroy the city-state of Athens. But remember, Athens has a very, very large naval fleet that they actually put their military on that while the city itself dispersed. So, and then the last huge engagement was at the Strait of Salamis, right? So the Persians took heavy land losses at the Battle of Thermopylae, and they also took heavy land losses at the Battle of Plataea, which is a year later when the final Persian forces were defeated. But the Strait of Salamis was a very, very important engagement because it was a naval battle between the Persian fleet and the Athenian fleet, and literally the Persian fleet was sunk by the Athenians. So, very, very important engagement. The Athenians finally won a major decisive victory, and they felt that their dominance on the naval was the equal of that of the Spartans on the land. So the Athenians are getting a little bit high on themselves right now, right? So, following the Third Persian War, Athens increases its status among the city-states. They're now no longer just the extra people with democracy. They are now the ones that want a permanent alliance of all the city-states with them at the head of it, right? Because they have the naval fleet. Sparta is very, very upset about this because they don't want to be held down by anyone or be told to do anything by anyone. So, the Athenians are going to go through with it, and they're like, fine, Sparta, you don't want to be a part of our club? Then you don't have to be a part of it. So, but the Delian League was formed, right? And the alliance was headed up by Pericles of Athens. We'll talk about him a lot when we get to classical Greece. Now, this was to defend from further Persian invasion. Even though the Athenians probably knew that the Persians weren't coming back because they decimated their military, the Athenians probably used it more along the lines of a way to make money to rebuild their city because they collected dues from every member, and you were required to have a democracy. So Athens is forcing its influence on all of these other city-states. This is making Sparta very, very upset, and it's going to lead to probably the biggest war that history had ever seen. Not Sparta versus Persia, not Athens versus Persia, not Spartan and Athens versus Persia, but Sparta versus Athens, right? So anyway, Athens is going to use money to rebuild. Sparta is getting very, very upset about this, and this is going to lead into the classical period of Greece, and then we're going to get into the Peloponnesian War, which is then going to go into the Hellenistic period, right? So, that's all I got for you today. I hope you all have a fantastic evening, Camden Catholic. Come in ready tomorrow, and we'll pick back up right here. We're going to have a quiz on Wednesday, by the way. All right? Y'all have a good evening.